I have the great privilege of working at the Glacier National Park Conservancy, Glacier's nonprofit partner. Thanks for joining us on a Wednesday evening. Winter finally arrived since our last Glacier Conversation here in Montana, but we've got people joining us from all around the country. Thanks so much. Again, it's great to see so many glacier lovers from around the country. My dear friend Janet Brandt, who had some internet problems on our last book club. Janet, we promised to make sure you're with us for the next one from Missouri. We've got Jody from Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is great. The Spears are here as always, Carl and Candy. It's great to just see so many good friends. My dear friend Tup Fisher from Palo Alto, California is with us tonight, avid biker. So thanks everybody for joining us for what I know is going to be a really fun and vibrant evening with two incredible leaders in the business community, the nonprofit community, as community members, and on the issue of climate change, and really making a difference in what we do, both in Glacier Park and what we do as a culture in protecting this world, right? Jimmy Carter liked to say that we are stewards of God's creation, and I thought that was a great line, and I think of it often as we do the work that we do. So again, thanks everybody for joining us. I'm Doug Mitchell. I'm joined tonight by Leticia Romero, who is from Missoula, Montana, and she is a climate runner who's going to be running this year, or yes, this year. It's already this year. With a run that is going to really be interesting. It's on the Rogue River, and it's going to be supported by boat. We'll learn a little bit more about that later. Leticia, thank you for joining us tonight. And also by our dear friend Caeli Quinn. Caeli is the founder of Climate Ride, which is a Missoula-based international nonprofit who I was joking with Caeli that, and I was aging myself, that we are going to call her the $6 million woman, because as of today, Climate Ride, since just 2008, and keep in mind when they started, they only did one race a year, but since 2008, they have donated $6,212,602 to climate-related charities. So Caeli, thanks for taking some time to be with us tonight.
Thanks, Doug. It's absolutely a pleasure. You can see here's our beautiful Going to the Sun Road in my background, which is the part of Glacier Ride, one of the most beloved climate ride events that we run.
If memory serves, it was in fact named the #1 bucket list charity ride.
Yes, by Bicycling Magazine.
That's a big deal.
Glacier does not disappoint. But what is really extraordinary about it is not just the bicycling and the hiking that occurs during the ride and the rafting. It's the fact that our participants get to meet with park rangers every night of the ride, and members of the community who are engaged in conservation, climate efforts, and a variety of aspects that are important to the preservation of Glacier National Park. And
in Glacier, I believe the most popular ranger is four-legged.
My daughter was just talking about that.
Gracie the Bark Ranger is always a popular addition to any soiree. Plus, you know, Mark Beal is really quite an amazing guy doing amazing research in the park. So yeah, that's terrific. Well, we were sorry not to be able to do Climate Ride last year, but you're already full this year, which is exciting.
Yes, we are. You know, obviously COVID, the pandemic impacted everyone's lives, and we were really concerned last year about you know, how Climate Ride and all nonprofits would do. And in fact, we were able to run very safely smaller events all over the United States. And instead of it being a year that was you know, the end, it was actually a new beginning for us. And we were able to grant over $100,000 last year to organizations. A Glacier Ride could not run, but yes, it is full for 2021, and we're looking forward to donating more funds and continuing the work that you all are doing.
Well, you've been critical, and you and your riders have been critical to our work, and I want to recognize the over $270,000 that Climate Ride and particularly the Glacier Climate Ride have made available to projects through the Glacier National Park Conservancy. That's a huge deal, Caeli, and it really has changed some of the narrative of what we do. That this idea about resilience and this responsibility to care for the environment has really helped us think in a different way about sustainability. And we were able, only because of Climate Ride, to be able to take the APGAR Visitor Center off the grid, right? Everybody on this call has been to the APGAR Visitor Center. You know that that's a big deal. It didn't cost zero. It cost tens of thousands of dollars. And I'll never forget going to the picnic table and sitting with the Climate Riders and with Caeli, and just, we got this. No problem, we got this. And they did. And as a result, they've motivated us to think differently about it. And in fact, this year, one of the projects we are fundraising for right now, and we're only $10,000 away from funding the whole thing, is $115,000 solar install to take the headquarters building off of the grid. So, so thank you for helping not only provide over $250,000 in philanthropy, but in providing the motivation through community fundraising that has made us better.
It's an interesting point you bring up. When I started Climate Ride in 2008, I wanted to take what was my job as an international biking and hiking guide and see how I could have some sort of impact on these issues. And what I've seen is that there really is a new kind of traveler out there. This idea that we can link a human-powered adventure with our own philanthropy. And you don't need to be a billionaire to do that. And what I've really seen that I love is that, for some of our riders, an 80-mile ride in a day is what they're looking for. But for other people, 20 miles is a huge deal. And that's their huge day. And so what we do at Climate Ride is provide options on all of our events so that you can do something to meet what is your big challenge. And the other part is having that ability to choose the organizations that you love. And so that's why Glacier Park Conservancy is a beneficiary, but across our events, you can choose from over 100 groups that are working to clean your waterways, to install protected bike paths so that more women and children and families will get out on bikes, and also land conservation, but also environmental justice organizations. So we're really, really widening the pool of groups that we're giving money to through our human-powered activities.
And you're widening not just with the groups, but also with not just the ride, but the run and now hikes as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we've done hikes over the last few years, but we really see everyone's adventure as something that can be used as an opportunity to fund climate, environment, and bike advocacy. So we actually have an independent challenge program where you can do your wedding, your bat mitzvah, your birthday, you can do a polar bear plunge, you can go climb a mountain. And we actually did our first virtual events, like everyone here participated in the past year. And in one event, we raised $80,000. Wow. And people were baking, crocheting, starting book clubs. So I really like the idea of expanding what your adventure is. But the most important part to me is that we all love public lands, parks. We love clean air, clean water. And in the United States, less than 3% of all philanthropy in the entire country, of the $100+ billion that Americans give, goes to support the environment. And that also includes all animal welfare, zoos and parks, less than 3%. So we have the capacity to give as a nation. And it's just changing people's minds about things they'd like to give to. And that's my life's work right now, is starting that next generation of environmental givers. We have a wide age range on our rides. On some of our bigger rides, we have from 12-year-olds up to 85-year-olds. So that intergenerational unity is a really wonderful part of the experience.
Yeah, and you've got quite a breadth of places that people can choose to go and have this experience as well.
Oh, yes. We run rides throughout the United States and now internationally as well. California, Maine, West Virginia. We run a wonderful ride from New York City to Washington, D.C., where we actually schedule for you to meet with your congressional representatives, which seems, how many people actually meet their congressional representatives? Very few. So it's an incredibly impactful opportunity to talk about the people and the places and the things that you love and what you would like to see in terms of legislation to protect those things.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I would encourage everybody, if you get a chance, go to climateride.org. It's a great website. It works fabulously. I would also challenge you that, so there's kind of a thing on when you go to the website, you take a lot of pictures of the group kind of jumping up in the air. There's one particularly, I will challenge you to find one. Caeli does not have good jumping game. I mean, you're good at a lot of things, but there's one, you got to go find this picture. So I'll challenge you, email me and I'll give you some sort of Glacier prize if you can find that picture. But climateride.org, it's very worth the time. And you can see the impact of what these folks are doing. And it's great that you have decided to headquarter it here in Montana.
Oh yes, I live in Whitefish, and it was actually my first visits to Glacier that were part of the inspiration to start the organization.
So you have been kind enough to put together a little slideshow for us. So why don't we segue to that, because nobody loves a good picture of Glacier more than me.
Indeed. Yes. So everyone loves, there's a bit of Glacier in here, but there's also a lot of, this is our rides to Washington, D.C., which are really wonderful, hundreds of people. And there's a variety of photos from events around, this one obviously you've seen, around the United States. But Glacier is definitely a highlight of so many of our rides. And what's fascinating about Glacier Ride is it brings people from all over the United States, like on this call, who have a deep connection to this national park. So it's wonderful.
So you have a lot of, I would imagine, and I've talked to a lot of the riders, you tell us a little bit about the mix of returning riders and new riders.
Yeah, we actually have a very high rate of return riders. Once you've done it once, it becomes like a bit of an addiction to see new places and also to select from this vast array of beneficiary organizations that we have. So we also, we have an idea of trying to have a fundraising minimum that is accessible, but we really incentivize people to raise as much as they possibly can. So we now regularly have people raising, more than $10,000 during an event, which is very typical for other charitable rides, and particularly in health and disease, where you see these large, huge amount of fundraising dollars. I'll give you a statistic. The top 30 charitable events in the United States, top 30, raise $1.6 billion a year.
Wow.
So that's when I say, we last year were on track to raise $1 million in a year. So I think we have a lot of great room to grow and to build that. So there's definitely a template out there, and I see it being a big part of our future.
And you're excited particularly about this Rogue River one coming up for a number of reasons, including some of the unique attributes of this particular event.
Yeah, so this is a really fascinating one. We actually have a Rogue River run, which Leticia will be on in May, and we have a Rogue River hike. So it's the same destination, but one is suited more for people who want to run it, obviously, and the other one has a slower pace for hikers. And this is unique because it's on a wild and scenic river, much like our Flathead River here, and there's no access for vehicles. So it's a 4-day camping trip, and you are supported by river raft on this trip. So if you can imagine, you're hiking or running along, and let's say you're like, oh, I need to cut the day short a little bit, because we always offer full support, the capacity to be like, I can't do this, I'm not feeling it today, I need your help. And you would just jump in a river raft and float downstream. So it's entirely a beautiful 4 days to unplug and really connect with nature and connect with your fellow runners and hikers.
And that's really what I mean, it's incredible. That's a great picture of Chief Mountain. It's incredible to be able to do the philanthropy that you do as a nonprofit, but it really is about building that community of caring, isn't it?
It really is, and that's something that you get on a bike ride or a hike. When you do something at the pace of a bicycle, there's a new connection built. You're not only challenging yourself, but you're also seeing the landscapes where you're cycling, and you're much more aware of things that you would like to protect and conserve and see exist for generations to come. Something that often can be missed when you're flying by in a car at 70 miles an hour. And so, I also think the idea of a personal challenge like I said, if it's 20 miles or 80 miles, you know, through your sweat and your human powered adventure, you feel a sense of accomplishment that's often hard to find these days. And with a group of people who become lifetime friends. So as you can see, all of these people here, all come back and do rides together once they've met. And that's another great part, is you don't need to come on a climate ride with a whole group of friends. You will meet friends. And it's just a group of people with who learn from each other. We have a lot of experts, a lot of very interesting people involved in environmental issues, but then people from all different careers and parts of the country. So it's a really wonderful mix.
And it's a great way to, you know, it's one thing to sit in your office and think intellectually about the environment that you're protecting. It's a whole nother thing then to actually go immerse yourself in it. And I think that that combination, both of just the physical being in a place like that, right, where we've all been, and then I think that extra thing you add too is, as you were talking about earlier, the opportunity to visit with rangers. That has to be a really enriching experience for your riders.
It is, and we do that on. That's my daughter, actually, with one of our wonderful riders who just had a baby 3 days.
Great.
So yes, we have from the beginning. Oh, and there's Jeff Mao.
Jeff
Everyone knows
Mao.
Jeff, our park superintendent. We have from the beginning integrated this idea of having expert speakers or local people involved in the ride. And, you know, we've had many members of Congress come and speak on our rides, park rangers, people from, you know, like on our Bears Ears National Monument ride, members of the Diné Bikia, and the Tribal Coalition Protecting Bears Ears. And the idea is, you know, let's hear from people who actually live here. So we do this nightly speaker series. It's very lively, and we try and have that be a part of as many events as possible. Also, the route design is very focused on ecology and experience. You know, if we're in our main ride, we'll visit the Rachel Carson Wildlife Refuge. We tend to focus our rides around national parks, public lands, things like that. So people see places that they may not have experienced before.
So you've grown quite a bit. You know, 2008 seems in one way like a lifetime ago. 2019 seems like a lifetime ago. But in another way, it's just yesterday, right? It's the snap of a finger. You know, tell us kind of about your growth path and where you see Climate Ride heading from here.
Sure. You know, I think of myself as a social entrepreneur. I had no idea I would start a nonprofit organization. And so I encourage any young people who don't have an idea, don't have a clue, to email me, or if you have children on this call who just are willing to take on a cause or a challenge, I highly encourage them to do so. I saw so many charitable rides being run for other causes, and I thought, why isn't anyone using the bike to raise money for the bike and the environment? And so the woman that I started Climate Ride with, Geraldine, we actually got a loan from the bank to get donation software and to build a website. I was working on Whitefish Mountain Resort at the time as a snow reporter, and then building this, you know, organization in the background. And when we had 100 people sign up in 2008 for our event, this was before smartphones and social media really hadn't taken off. We were stunned. But it was such an extraordinary experience and such a joy for me to use my skill base to actually to have an impact on things that I care so much about. And so the organization has evolved over time. You know, we started out, as you mentioned, with one event a year, and then we moved into hikes and runs, and now I believe we're running 14 events in 2021 all over the place. And we also started a new series called Green Fondo, which is based on the Italian style of a weekend cycling party, which is called a Gran Fondo. And we did our first Green Fondo at the end of 2019, right before the realities of COVID set in. And we sold out at 350 people, a weekend ride. And it is an opportunity for people who are not quite sure they can do 6 days of cycling to jump into a weekend ride with us. And as soon as we're able to, we plan to expand the Green Fondo series to every region of the United States. There's more access for people to be a part of the Climate Ride experience.
That is awesome. Tamara, you had your hand raised. If you want to go ahead and ask your question, that would be great.
Hello, sorry. This is, my name's Tamara, and I'm actually the Director of Philanthropy for Sequoia Parks Conservancy. We're the nonprofit partner to Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. And we did a virtual race for the first time in 2020, and we learned a lot. And we are doing, we're doing the race again this year, virtually again. And I'm curious about your registration process. That was one of the things that we navigated as we pulled this race together for the first time. We used a peer-to-peer platform, a fundraising platform, but I think people really wanted more of a platform that's based on the race and the mileage and what was accumulated daily based on the individual and on the team. And so I'm curious what direction you take when you begin the registration process and then launch the race.
Yeah, so the donation software and kind of what our needs are in terms of the peer-to-peer and the social media and the gamification, they don't all come together so well right now. You should email me and I can give you some suggestions for that. And I can tell you what software we use. And so it's kind of, it just doesn't exist as one package right now, so to speak.
That is correct. It doesn't.
Yeah. But I have suggestions for you.
We had a lot of, okay, great. Yeah, we
had a lot of, but I can definitely talk to you about that.
Perfect. Yeah, we had a lot of hiccups with the Strava integration in particular, and it was very buggy. And so it ended up causing us a lot of work on the back end. So I will definitely email you. Thank you.
Please do. Thanks.
And on Glacier Ride specifically, Lana Batts from Lakeside was asking about when is the ride and where does it start? Where does it end? Kind of what are the specifics? How many people this year?
So we are capped at 30 people. We actually have a special permit for 50, but we're keeping it smaller this year just because there's some uncertainty of the Canadian border opening, and the ride with our traditional route goes to Waterton. But we have wonderful, a route that's entirely in the US. And if we do the US based route, we always start in Whitefish and then make our way through the park. And our route is online. If you go to climateride.org events and click right on Glacier Ride, you can read the details of every single day, actually. And that's the route as it stands right now going into Waterton, which is certainly a big question for all of us, if there will be Canadian travel this year.
Yeah, we'll certainly hope so. That would open up a lot of great opportunity on the east side of the park and obviously in Canada as well. So, Caeli, before we kind of let you go, I do want to let people know, use the chat feature if you want, or just raise your hand like Tamara did to ask any questions you want. This is supposed to be a conversation, hence Glacier Conversations. So feel free to weigh in and ask questions throughout, and Jill is going to help curate those. We also have some prizes. Caeli and her team provided us with some swag to give away, so we'll be doing a drawing later on. You have to be present to win. We will have already written your name down to put in the drawing, and so feel free to ask questions using the chat. But you said you might be able to give us a little preview, Caeli, of some exciting news that you and Climate Ride are going to be announcing tomorrow.
Yes, so in 2020, thanks to the incredible giving of our participants, we actually have created an environmental justice action fund, and we will be giving out $20,000 in grants. And the unique part about this is we're actually going out to our community to ask for nominations, to recognize underserved and underrepresented organizations that are doing really important work to clean up pollution and protect communities that have been underserved. So we will be emailing that out tomorrow. I look forward to people's nominations and growing the Environmental Justice Action Fund to be more robust in the year to come.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Thank you for kind of bringing us behind the curtain and giving us an early preview of that. And, it is such an honor to have friends and partners like Caeli Quinn. It really does take a village to do this work. And so thank you. And Caeli will be staying with us for the remainder of our hour. But I want to kind of now, we're also delighted you've introduced us to Leticia Romero. And Leticia is joining us from her home in Missoula, Montana. Thank you, Leticia, for coming out and spending some time with us tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk about our Mother Earth and why we do things like Climate Ride, why we go out and call our local representatives on things that are important to us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I was reading a little bit about you, and you kind of got into this running game fairly young, age 13 or so, and you've been doing distance running for quite a while.
Yes. So I was born in Chicago, Illinois, and so ever since I can remember, I just have always liked to run. And as a kid, you play tag, and you're always just running. That's all you do when you're a kid, and you're playing all of this stuff. So I just always have been attracted to just running movement. And so I moved out to Missoula, Montana about almost 12 years ago. And then that's when I started doing trail running. I did cross country as well in high school, and then 2 years at the community college. And then, so now all of a sudden I have all these trails and mountains. And so I just been doing that, and, the distance just kept adding up. And I'm like, okay, well, 20 miles doesn't sound too much. It's kind of like, you don't really go by distance so much. You go by, I want to run a mountain range over there, or I want to spend a day out, for all day. Like, I just want to be outside all day. And then before you know it, you're racking up 13 miles, 17 miles. And it's always such an experience to have, right? So you're outside, you're on your feet, and to come back to to the trailhead, to your car, you always feel like, what went on while I was out here? What went on? Did the world end somewhere and I didn't know about it because I spent all day out on the trails by myself. But yeah.
Yeah, it's an important thing that you say, and I think we've all been reminded of that this last year about the power of special places, whether it's the trails or a place like Glacier Park, right? The opportunity for restoration and renewal, and for discovery in those special times being outside. And I sense from you that that's really an important part of who you are.
Yes, definitely. So the being outside, for me, it's not just, being out at, let's say, Glacier National Park or visiting. It's the land for me is Mother Earth, and that's how I refer to the land. And so it's more than just recreation, right? For me, it's more like being out and visiting, right? Visiting with the chickadees, visiting with the mountain squirrels, and acknowledging the land that gives us gifts every day, right? So we get air to breathe, we get water, clean water, and those things are really vital to life, to us. Without trees, without the streams and water, we have no life. And so I think that's really important, as being humans, as being part of the earth. We are Mother Earth. We were birthed from her. We are this land, and so we have to make sure we have to protect it. And the more that we spend time outside, away from the phones, right? The stuff like that. The more we get to know, the more we get to know our Mother Earth. And like I said, I grew up in Chicago, right? And so nobody would think like, oh, like how is this person from Chicago like so all of a sudden like such a naturalist or an environmentalist? Like there's no nature in Chicago, right? So, but it's everywhere. I remember like being a kid and there was like these little ants coming out of the sidewalk, the crack of the sidewalk. And I remember like feeding it like Doritos, like little crumbs, and just like talking to the little ants, because they're like life, they're like little beings. Or like even if you live in the city, there can be like weeds, or what people call weeds, but like flowers coming out from, again, places that you would never think would grow something. But there's life everywhere.
So do you remember, was there a moment, or just kind of was it a natural progression when you took your love of being outside and your appreciation of Mother Earth and said, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to become active in my community to bring people together to actually do something about that. How did that come to be for you?
Since I can remember, and just being a kid, like I can't, honestly, I don't have remember. It's just being, okay, so like when I was in 3rd grade, I organized a recycling club in my classroom. And so I remember that. And then just carrying a lot of, like, I don't really see myself, like as an activist or environmentalist, or things like that. It's just like I'm part of the community, as we all are here today. We're part of communities in our own towns, in our own homes, in our own neighborhoods. And so it's when you care about your community, you want to speak up when you see things that are not, could be done better, or, could be, just speaking up. And also, so I guess if a couple of years ago, I started going to city council meetings on behalf of, I always try to take, like, let's all pretend like that Mother Earth has a voice, and every time you go do something. So when we go do a climate run or climate ride, we're like taking the voice of Mother Earth with, and what do we want, how will we represent our planet? And so I started going to city council meetings, trying to get like city council to do a plastic bottle ban, and things like that, starting to do more climate action locally here, just speaking up. It feels like, so that's what it kind of, my progression. There has been no progression for me, at least, because I just always remember caring about things. But as I get older, you start going to meetings, going to organizations that are doing a river cleanup or things like that. And then that's how you start networking with people.
And so we're pretty excited about your upcoming climate run. That's going to be great. But tell us about how you first got involved with Climate Ride.
Right. So I was talking about, like, so when you're in, you go into meetings, you're getting to know people in your community and things like that. A friend who works for Climate Ride reached out to me here in Missoula and said, would you be interested in doing like a climate run? And I said, yes, of course. Like, I would love to. I love running. Like, heck yeah. Like, where is it? And they're like, Oregon. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Why not? I've never been to that part of, where a Rogue River. And so I said, yes, definitely. And they're like, okay, well, pick an organization that you would like to fundraise for. And I picked a Soil Cycle, which is a bike power pedaled compost service. So we pick up your compost on bike and a trailer. So you can't really go wrong with that. I mean, you do your compost and then you have it picked up by a person on bike. Like, and it's also it's founded and run by women. So yeah, it's super cool.
That's awesome, and that race is coming up this May, which is great. And my wife Julie and I made a contribution to support you in your efforts, and we're going to post. I'm going to kind of challenge us as a group. I'd love to try and help you meet your goal. You have a $2,000 goal, which seems like a really reasonable goal, and feels like we might have a coalition of the willing tonight. So we're going to post the link for people who might be so inclined to throw in a few dollars to help with this effort. It's really important for us to, as a community of caring, as I've mentioned before, get together and support that. So thank you for leading the way for us, and we hope we can provide you with some support along the way as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Any awareness of our climate crisis happening now, and doing a good thing and helping those organizations trying to do something about it helps.
One of the other things I know you're involved is the Sunrise Movement in Missoula. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Right. So Sunrise Movement Missoula is a chapter, from the national here in Missoula, and it's youth led. And so we trying to push for the Green New Deal, basically, and the Green New Deal would do like a just transition, so equitable transition over to renewable energies and Medicare for all, and all of the things that we need to do in order, to take us on to the next phase in our civilization.
Yeah, that's really that's a neat movement for people to be able to get their voice and to think about what are really complicated public policy issues, right? That we need to be able to have, civil and important conversations about our future. Because I know one of the most important roles you have, and that all of us, so I think pretty much on this phone have, is as parents. You're a mom. And so, that clearly has to be the number one priority. And you're raising the next generation of land stewards. And, what I'm hearing from you is you're doing that by demonstrating for her how you become active in your community.
Right. Yes. And I am here definitely for my daughter, for the next 7 generations. And on President's Day last week, the Sunrise Movement Missoula had a rally here in downtown Missoula that spoke about exactly that, the Green New Deal, and also talked about stopping Line 3, which is a pipeline right now going through Minnesota that Indigenous people are fighting right now to stop. It's going to be going right through rice wetlands that grow rice, wild rice. And not only that, like, water is life, and so we need to, so that was what that was about. And we definitely, if anybody would like to look it up, it's just Stop Line 3. It's really important right now.
So it's really exciting to have, your generation. I'm old, so, we have to really rely on the next generations of leaders like yourself to really give voice to these important policy discussions that are happening in our country. I was told by famous old Montana power lobbyist when I first came to Montana, my first legislative session in 1989. Yes, I am that old. And John Lahr, who was the lobbyist for Montana Power at the time, came up to me, put his arm around me, and he said, "Young man, in every piece of legislation, there are winners and there are losers. And the only way you get something passed is to make sure the losers don't know who they are." Right. And unfortunately, that is too often true, right? And so I think our democracy is best when we have robust discussions by smart people on both sides of the issue who give us the opportunity to really have what's best about democracy, which is that we have civil, thorough discussions, and we get to plan our own future the way that the founders thought we should. And it's going to go off the rails one way or the other, and they've designed that too. But I really, it's only fixed. John Law's only wrong, and should be wrong, when people like you and people like all of us take that opportunity to learn about what's going on and speak out about it. So that's really, really important. And that's really what's at the core of Climate Ride and some of these other movements, Soil Cycle, Sunrise Movement, et cetera, is becoming involved and being involved in civil discourse. So I really credit you for that, and thank you for your involvement and modeling for that next generation that you're raising is so vitally important. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for that great work. On a more mundane thing, you kind of threw out there that you run 20 miles like it's nothing. I ran 5 miles today and I can barely survive it. My dear friend Tup Fisher, who I can see on the phone here, still has his towel over his shoulder from his outing. So tell us a little about how you get through that. Kind of what's your gear regimen? What kind of shoes do you wear? Do you use gels? Do you carry a banana? How do you do these distance runs, Leticia?
Right. So it was a learning process, right? Everything you kind of have to trial and error. Right now, the thing that changed my whole running life was changing into zero drop running shoes. So basically, I run in ultras, which are zero drop shoes. For me, it's because your feet want to walk, naturally as they can, and they don't want to be impeded. And so that changed my whole running gait, my whole recovery. For some reason, when I run in these shoes, I can run 10 miles and not really, my recovery is whatever, super easy. Yeah, yeah, it's just kind of just being on your feet. I also work at UPS in a warehouse where I'm on my feet a lot of the day. So it's basically like training your body to be on your feet for many hours. So it comes easy for me because I already do that every day. I'll be, 6 hours on my feet without sitting down for maybe more than 10 minutes. So it's just training your feet to be on moving, right? You don't really need to be running. I don't think all of these miles all the time. Just be on your feet, because you're going to have all this gravity on you for several hours if you're going to do a 20-mile run.
What about hydration and nutrition?
Water. I do the Hammer drink, I think, the electrolyte. I just do water. And when you do those long distance runs, especially, I just take a water filter with you, pop up next to a stream, fill up your bag with the water filter. It's a little bit heavier of a pack, but it's worth it because it's ice cold water. So
that's a good idea. I like that idea. I like that idea of cold stream water. Well, folks should feel super comfortable about using the chat feature. Jill, I don't know if I've not been monitoring the chat. I don't know if you've been watching the chat and you have some questions that are in here. I saw that Mark asked a question about fundraising minimums. Caeli, do you want to tackle that one? I think maybe you did on the chat, but I know that some people don't read the chat, so maybe you can help us out with that one.
Sure. So the question was, do fundraising minimums vary by event? And they do, based on the event, the services offered. And so one thing I want to say is that we try and strike a balance between a fundraising minimum that obviously, engages people and they're not afraid to do it, but at the same time allows us to give really powerful grants. And I worked in luxury active travel before I started Climate Ride. So I wanted to find a way to have events that have, outstanding guides, high quality of service, We all like food that's fresh and good. We like to support local businesses, so we'll work with wonderful local outfitters who share our values. So you can expect a really high quality experience. And for trips that are camping trips, most of them, we do have a hotel option, which is at an additional expense.
That's awesome. And Jill, I'll kind of turn it over to you since you've been paying more attention. I've been so engrossed in the conversation.
Yeah, someone also had a question about how international participation works. I'm not sure regarding which aspect of Climate Ride, but Caeli, can you reflect on that at all? Like just regarding international participation overall?
Sure. I think the question is related to our international events, and it's the same as participating in a US based one. There's a fundraising minimum. You are responsible for getting yourself there in whatever way you do. But there are a lot of variation in the events, and each page we really try and spell that out also in the FAQ. So any kind of recommendations we have on getting there, if you need special insurance or vaccinations or anything like that, you can find that on each event page. Now, if the question was about, do international people participate in our events? They most certainly do. And it's interesting, we do have people, Europeans in particular, who have come and done our events, but since they have a different philanthropic system in their country, their services and their environment are paid through their taxes. They don't have a nonprofit system the way we do. So generally they don't fundraise because there's no tax structure to incentivize tax-free donations. So anyway, it's sort of an interesting point of difference between US and other countries.
Cool.
To Leticia as well, I run in ultras. This is kind of like an ultra ad here. I see people are writing about it. So thank you.
Yes, I'm actually an ultra newbie as well. And I'm probably going to make myself sound like a super newbie because the first few times I wore them, I had this like crazy soreness in like my Achilles area. Is this common? Have you guys experienced this? And it was like something I'd heard about. People are like, oh, you're not used to like being that low. So you just need to like keep wearing them. And like, I have kept wearing them and I think I'm getting used to them now. But yeah, the first time I was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah. You like Leticia said, if you wear them all day, your body does adjust to the change and the lift.
Yeah, like our feet want to, be unimpeded, and also we develop all those small little muscles and tendons, and we get strength from them if we exercise it more. But I feel like when we use other shoes that are try to support us, they're kind of like disabling us because we're not really strengthening those parts of our feet that we need to strengthen.
I'm gonna have to go to Al Gore's interweb for a little more ultra knowledge. Is there a simple explanation for us newbies as to what that might look like? Is it flatter or?
No, not really. It's just like my shoe has still cushion, but it's just a zero drop, which means your heel is not higher than your forefoot.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so it's just it comes in millimeters, but it does really, or centimeters, I forget to mention, but it really does make a difference. Like, a lot of shoes tend to like, it's really supportive and stuff, but it's basically like, giving you support and not letting you allowing you to develop those little strengths and tendons and muscles and other parts of your body.
Gotcha. Okay, so for golfers like Greg Olson, this is like having zero bounce in your pitching wedge.
Yeah, right.
And someone just asked too, we're getting everyone into ultras now. Someone asked if ultras could be recommended for non-runners too. I would say yes. Do you all have any opinions?
They're my preferred hiking shoe too.
Nice.
So I love them. They're my favorite shoe by far.
Yeah.
And I've pairs, different types. They come in different varieties. So you can choose if you're walking, more hiking, running.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also may depend if you're doing like a short hike. For myself, I just wear my running shoes, if I'm just going to be hiking.
Sure. Cool. Leticia, do you have a favorite trail run in Missoula?
Yes, I have so many. I love Blue Mountain. I really wish all of these trails would have names to them, like creative names, instead of like 3.01 to the squared pi, 3.02. It's just really confusing for me. And so I try to name them, right, specifically. But if you're in the running community, people name, certain trails. But Blue Mountain, Patty Canyon, those are like the closest ones in the Missoula area.
Yeah, cool. Another question we had for the Climate Ride team is, your team in Missoula, or do some of you do work remotely or elsewhere?
Yes, we were sort of remote working before it was a thing. So we have a small staff of 5. We have an office in Missoula, and we have 2 people in Missoula and 1 in Palm Springs and 1 in Sacramento, and then I'm in Whitefish. So we are well versed in the Zoom, Google Docs, remote world, and everyone loves the outdoors. And kind of one of the highlights of wintertime, especially for the Montana-based people, are powder days. So we have a powder policy, as every company should have. And you can do your work later, but get out there and enjoy it when you can.
It's kind of like the wind policy that they have in the gorge for people who are in the gorge and they want to go windsurfing or kite surfing. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, good.
And we also have to make sure, Jill, that we get our giveaway in.
Yeah, should we go ahead and just do that now?
We should do that for sure.
Okay, yeah, we do have the winners selected. So Climate Ride was super generous to throw in some swag for tonight's event, which we're really excited about. And I'm just going to make sure our winners are still on with us, so I'm not talking to dead space here. And I think they both are. Okay, good. So the first little prize, I wish we had it on us, but we can show you pictures. All the items are really cool, but the first item is a really colorful Climate Ride branded fanny pack. It's really cool. Stash all your little goodies in when you're going on your adventures. So that winner of the Climate Ride fanny pack is Sarah Wemple. So congratulations, Sarah. You are the winner of that. And then we had another little Climate Ride swag goodies, which is a pair of socks and a really cool green Climate Ride cap, baseball cap. And the winner of that is Julie Stevens. So congratulations, Julie.
Excellent. Good.
And we'll coordinate with you both after the event and make sure that we have your mailing address and ship those out to you here in the coming weeks. So,
we're really lucky in Montana to have such great trail systems and commitment to trail systems. Whether you're at Heron Park in Kalispell or you're here in Helena, where I am right now, an incredible trail system in Helena or Missoula or Bozeman. I think that's been one of the things that Montana has really gotten right, is this idea of providing access from an urban corridor to our trail systems. I think it really is an exciting part of Montana's growing communities, for sure.
Helena has a wonderful trail system. We go there every year now. It's beautiful, really well done.
Yeah, it keeps growing. Prickly Pear Land Trust, also we've got great, vibrant land trust communities. The Five Valleys Land Trust, the Flathead Land Trust, Prickly Pear, Gallatin Valley. They're all, great people, and they've really got good game when it comes to protecting those core areas. But yeah, so that's cool. So Jill, I think we got some time for a couple more questions.
Yeah, let's dive into a few more. I guess this could be for Caeli and Leticia, if either of you have interesting stories to share. Someone was wondering if you've ever had, the question is, have you ever had animals chase you? I guess I would phrase it too, like, have you ever had any cool experiences with wildlife while you're out on a run or a ride, or, one of these events that you've done?
I definitely have. Yes. Leticia, do you want to jump in first, or?
I am so grateful. Not yet. Hopefully I keep it that way. I have seen, we do see black bears cinnamon bears, grizzly bears from far away. Usually they're more scared of me. So they try to hide, but I haven't had like an encounter.
I was once going to Sun Road, which some of you on this call I'm sure have done. It's we do this a lot in the springtime if you live locally, because you can check the weather and jump up there. And we kind of think of it as an after work ride, which you're really in an extreme wilderness environment. So one night, I think we started at 5 o'clock. And, my friend Caeli and I were both, we're both pretty good cyclists. So we're rushing up there, all we have is a couple snacks, and our rain pants, because on the way down, all the snow is melting, right? So you ride your bicycle down and you're just coated in water that's coming up on your wheels, freezing water. So you bring some rain pants and try not to freeze. Anyway, we're heading down, no one else is up there. And a grizzly and 2 cubs crossed the road in front of us. And she didn't see them, and I screamed. And we slammed on the brakes, and we're only, probably a couple miles off Logan Pass heading down. We have a ways to go. And we turn our bikes around and ride back up. And we're wet and cold at this point. It's getting dark. And we start looking a little bit. We ride down again. The 2 cubs, the mom in the middle, just standing there watching us. And at this point, I'm getting really cold. I'm starting to not speak very much. And at that moment, 2 bighorn sheep just like jump over the road. And I'm like, enough animals, enough. And then we decide after a while, and she's an incredible athlete, and I'm definitely not speaking at this point because I'm so cold. A bit of time has passed by. We look again, and at this point, the cubs have split, and the mom has followed one. And it's not an area where we have any moving room. And now the cubs are split, and we're just, you're concerned, right? Because the mom's watching them. And we decide we just have to go for it. And we just jumped on our bikes and started pedaling as hard as possible, because we were in, hypothermia was becoming a real possibility. Anyway, I remember going by, and it was one part on going to Sun Road where there's a tree that kind of hangs over the road. And I could see the mom and cub on one side and 1 cub in the tree above us. And we just hauled down to the loop, which, and took a moment to eat and try and warm up. And it was a real awakening to me about always being prepared when you go into this atmosphere. Bring something, a lot of extra clothes, food, anything you need in case there's a wet slide avalanche, which was another big experience we all started seeing in the last few years over the road with cyclists up there. But yeah, it was real for sure.
Wow, that's
a great
incredible.
story.
Yeah, Glacier can surprise you in very, very quick fashion. And, it's great to kind of a great segue to how quickly this hour went. Thank you very much for joining us, Caeli and Leticia. It's so great to be in partnership with just dynamic, young, smart, powerful, empowered people like yourselves. And it makes us better every day. And thank you for doing that. And it's feeling good. Like I think we all watched snow melt today a little bit. And so as we look at the picture behind Caeli, we're thinking about those days that might be soon ahead of us when the road is still closed, but it might be a little bit dry and we might be able to get our bikes out. I know Greg Olson's up for that just about any day. And being able to get back out on the Going to the Sun road, and maybe even be able to go back down the backside this year. So thank you, Caeli. Thank you, Leticia. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight for this Glacier Conversation. Our next one is with one of the dynamic duo of what is one of Apple's fastest growing podcasts, the Glacier Headwaters podcast. If you've not tuned in, it really is quite remarkable. And so Michael Feist will be with us on March 23rd to talk about the podcast. And again, because of what you do, all of you do, to support the Conservancy, we were able to say yes to a request that we weren't able to say yes to 6 months ago, which is to fully fund season 2 of the Headwaters podcast. So it is coming your way. Very exciting to be able to do that. And so again, none of this happens without the philanthropy that you all make possible. So thank you for allowing us to have the best jobs in the world, right? And to be able to say yes to the needs of Glacier National Park. So thank you all for joining us. Feel free to contact me, Caeli, with more questions going forward. And we look forward to seeing you on your bike, on a run, or in the park on a hike sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Caeli. Thanks, Leticia.
Thank you. Bye, Leticia.